Hey there team, and welcome back to the channel, and welcome to my review of Hellcard. So this game just went into full release, oh god, it must have been a week ago, something like that. However, I played it on a whim. I did check it out in early access back in the day, and honestly, I wasn't that impressed at early access because the shtick with this, the party trick, the gimmick, is that it's a Slay the Spire type game. However, it's supposed to be co-op multiplayer, 3-player. If you buy this just to play on your own, and you're expecting some revolutionary take on Slay the Spire, you're not going to get it. Like, it's got a really cool aesthetic. It does this sort of circular waves attacking you, but the whole idea of picking off enemies and building a card during a run, it's all the same, it's all there. A few little twists on the formula. I suppose you could argue you're fighting more volume, like you're fighting waves of dudes as opposed to maybe 1 or 2 opponents. That might be the biggest change, but as far as like fundamental mechanics, it's the same. Now that's not to say that it's bad. I am comparing it to Slay the Spire, who is the high water mark, so that's already a good example. So this is as good as that, I would say, as far as the mechanics that had been worked out before it. The real strength of this is playing it multiplayer. Now, I'm lucky enough to have a couple of mates on my friends list that, for lack of a better term, are a bit sweaty into this card battling scene. And while I don't really play them a lot these days, it's been a long time since I played Slay the Spire, I know it. I know the mechanics, the strategies. You know, I'm in it. I'm sure people can relate. Choose your own title. So I jumped in with these boys and we did a couple of runs, and it's actually really, really good. At first, and they had me at a disadvantage when I first started playing because they've already got the rhythm of their characters. A lot of shit exploding on the screen. It's kind of real time when you do your team turn. So if you want to set up sort of synergy combos, that sort of stuff, you have to communicate. One of my mates, I love him to death, but he really loves pulling the trigger as hard as he can, as fast as he can. And you miss some opportunities where maybe you could have eked out a better block on this dude, that sort of thing, you know. And at first, when you're still building the run, it doesn't matter so much, but when you're starting to get up towards the boss fight, it could get down to the wire as far as sweaty stuff, though at the same time we had some runaway runs where we were just stomping. It was just combo chain out of control, cards spewing onto the screen. So it's good that it actually has that diversity at either end. You don't really want to just pub stomp the whole time, and on the other end, you don't really want to just get fisted non-stop. It's actually really good at the variance. I put half a dozen hours in or so. Look, not a whole amount, but I found myself between things today chipping away a run on my own. It does work fine on its own, by the way. And interestingly, you like pick up companions, and they have their own deck, so it's sort of like an AI partner in a way. But the game kind of encourages you to go, here's 2 cards from their hand, like an offensive and a defensive, and play that. You can get into their hand and micromanage it, but that is exhausting. And even when I went into this, I was like, I don't really like the idea of having to manage 3 different bloody decks. That to me is not innovation. But it's clearly, a Baratrauma bot situation. This game is supposed to be played multiplayer. You can play it single player, and the sort of simplified bot management that comes in the single player version works really well. And so at the moment, I actually can see this game being my, between meetings, just grinding away, putting Spotify on, sort of downtime game. A lot of people play, idle clickers in that sort of space. But yeah, look, it's really good. There's 3 starter classes, which are effectively like a holy trinity. You've got warrior, rogue, archer, and then mage. Then after you complete a run, you unlock this 4th dude, and he's essentially a pet build, investment in passive damage with ramp, that sort of thing. He's a lot of fun as well, but it's obvious why he's locked. You kind of want to have your head around the core game before you really cut your teeth on the dude. I hope I didn't come across as unfair on the game, because the innovation that it does do, what little there is actually really interesting in that multiplayer space. You can probably see on the screen, the 3 of you cut your center circle into thirds, and you might also notice there's an inside and outside layer. And for example, with the 2 of the base classes, the warrior, it's all very close range. You'll have attacks that do 2 damage in the close range, but they'll do 1 on the out. And the archer is inverted, 2 on the outside long range, 1 close. And then you'll get abilities like kick and that to try and control positions. So it does have that over, say, Slay the Spire. It's been so long that I've played it, and I have to keep comparing it to that because that's probably the most common touchstone. But I believe positioning was not such a big deal in that game. Whereas this has it, albeit it's only really between the 3 quadrants and close or far. Simple, but streamlined. Other things like the loot system, you obviously have artifacts, you can add cards, remove cards, upgrade them, all the normal trappings. But when you embark on the next step of your run, each of your characters have like a little sort of tree. I don't know how else to describe it, but it is like your Slay the Spire roguelike meta map, choose the next location. It'll only be 2 locations or the inevitable boss, which is locked in. And from that you pick, do I want to verse skeletons followed by ruins? And the ruins might be like you can loot an object or heal or something like that. Maybe the other option is zombies and like a smithy where you can maybe upgrade cards. And it basically jams all 3 of the choices together into this weird hybrid monstrosity. So I picked zombies, one of the other blokes has got spiders or something, and they'll all get mixed in and thrown in together. And it works really well. I feel like I haven't laboured that point, and I really should. As much as it is just more Slay the Spire, the multiplayer works really well. And I'm a skeptic around this sort of stuff. Like turn-based multiplayer games, everyone's been stuck in a Civ 6 match where 2 of your mates go to war, and it ends up with you just sitting there doing nothing for 90% of the time while they move 1 unit at a time. Like turn-based multiplayer games always get people excited because there's a lot of enthusiastic people that enjoy turn-based single-player games, but a lot of the time it can miss. And the idea of doing one of these games where you could really sit there and number crunch for minutes on end and having to suffer through one of my mates doing it seems agonizing. But it actually works really, really well the way that they've built it here. So the devs should be commended. There is no narrative or anything like that, not that I can tell. It's just a game, pure and simple. You unlock cosmetics, you unlock more stuff as you do runs. There's a torment level system. It's actually called Torment, but I feel like if you call it Torment as a mechanic, most people understand the idea that once you beat a run, you can then go to Torment 1, Torment 2, Torment 3. So there is replayability in the difficulty ramp, which, much like Diablo 3, I'm pretty sure Diablo 3 was the first to do torment levels. Was there torment levels in Diablo 2? Oh, now I'm getting a little distracted. Anyway, but my point is, I think most people understand what that is, and that's what people want in these sort of games. If you're willing to grind it over and over and over again, you need it to ramp. So yeah, look, beyond waffling and just ranting on, it doesn't have to be a long review. And again, I haven't put a huge amount of hours in. I've put in enough. I know exactly what this is, and I know what it's doing right, and I could gladly recommend it to my fellow gamer. But again, the caveat being, if you're not interested in this genre, not really, then I think it'd be a stretch to say that this is going to convert you or interest you in any way, even if it is multiplayer. This is ultimately squarely aimed at people that love these sort of games, and I love them, even though I'm a little bit burnt out on the genre, and maybe have a couple of mates who are very like-minded as well, big fans of the same genre and play in the same sort of space. All right, that'll do. Cool game. All right, I might just leave it there for the time being, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.